So you're interested in how koans work or something? Or, I mean, is that what you're interested in?
No, how koans work, how is it possible to create or already exist the kind of scale of complexity for the koans?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, it depends on, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of using koans, right? So it depends on which school of Zen, or actually more specifically than that, which lineage, what your teacher lineage is they're different methods that they have, different ways of using koans and so on. And so there can be, I mean, on one extreme, you can have like as many as like 2,500 koans. And it's basically a step-by-step process that leads somebody through these, this whole set of koans. And supposedly, by the time you finish, then you have some kind of enlightenment, or it's like a certification of some kind of enlightenment or something like, something like that. And that's on one extreme, and the other extreme is you only have one koan. And all you need to do is answer one, and that's it. And so there's a lot of different ways to use how koans are used and what koans are and something like that, because you have these different ways of using them. So with the school that has only one koan, basically you have to find your personal problem. And when it's sort of like finding your source. You find your source, and when you really answer that question, whatever that is, that's all you need to do to have the transformation.
And who puts the question?
You find the question for yourself.
But
you find the question for yourself with the guidance of the teacher. I mean, if you come in with some kind of a silly question or something like that, then that's not going to be satisfactory. But when you find when you find your own question, I mean, at a fundamental level of who you are, basically, then you just stay with it. You can stay with the same question for years.
Okay. I remember that you told very interesting story about you, how you solved the koan, and can you tell it to me again, because I don't remember fully.
Okay, well, basically, the koans are they're structured in such a way that there's not an easy answer. There's not a rational answer to a koan.
I understand that.
And so in order to answer a koan, you have to, it's sort of like you, how do I say? It's like, it's essentially, you use your intuition to answer, to really answer a koan. So you end up in the situation where to answer a koan, it's sort of like in English we say, you hit the wall, right? And you try everything, you try all of your, let me see, your regular ways of solving problems.
Mhm.
right?
Да.
And nothing works. Nothing works, right?
Mhm.
So that's the point at which that's the point at which you reach your limits, right?
Mhm.
And at that point, the point that you reach your limits, that's when you get to that place, then you're up against that wall of, and you can't, it's like, that's what you've got to get through. And so it's like accessing, how do I say, another part of yourself that you don't usually access or something like that, I mean, and it doesn't happen by it's sort of like, you have to, what is one Zen teacher told me once, he said, you try to, you have to try and try and try. You have to try, you're up, you don't know what to do, right? But you're in the situation, you keep hitting your head against the wall, and you try this, you try that, and nothing works, and nothing works. And you go in to see the Zen teacher to try and answer the question, and no, he yells at you, and you've understood nothing, and and so on and so forth. And at a certain point, it's like kind of like at a certain point, there's like a breakthrough. But it doesn't happen because of you figured it out, or because of the rational mind or something like that. It happens because of something else. And so this one teacher described to me, it says you have to try, but in the end, all of your effort is meaningless, because it's not what the result comes from something else. And it doesn't come from, it's not as a result of your, how do I say, your regular mind or whatever, figuring these, it's not like you figured it out, it's just like you have to open up another part of yourself, basically. And that's the process. That's what the process basically is. So there's a Japanese guy whose name is Shinichi Hisamatsu. Hisamatsu is the family name. Shinichi is the first name. And he had what he had this thing that he called the fundamental koan for life.
One.
And instead of fundamental.
Fundamental.
Yeah, right. Fundamental, one koan, right? For life. And he said the fundamental koan is when you've done everything that you can do, right? And nothing works, then what do you do? Okay. So you're up against this point, you're up against this, you try all of your regular ways of doing things, right? And nothing works. And then what do you do? And then what people do at that point is they do all kinds of, they can be crazy things or whatever. They don't have to be crazy things, but they do all kinds of things. What do people do at that point? Some people give up. Some people fight harder. Some people try to figure out a way to run around the wall. Some people try to bash the wall down. It's like, you have, everybody has to kind of like to have their own individual response at that point. And at that point that you've got this, your own individual response, that's the, that's where your, how do I say, your unconscious part comes up, and that's what you got to work through. That's what you got to get through. But you're not working directly with the conscious mind. You're working with your tendencies, let's say, your character tendencies or whatever, your personality structure or whatever it is, and that's what has to get transformed.
I understand this more or less, but just to understand it like more clearly, can you tell me like what's happened with you? Did you begin to study Zen, then came to some koans, and what's happened?
Well, in my own situation, my history with koans is a very crooked road, let's say.
Mhm, mhm.
And I never was a good koan student, right? I mean, there are people who answer koans, and I mean, you know, these, you go to these teachers and they've got 2,500 koans, you know, to go through, and they start going through koans like that, you know. And I was never like that. So I only answered a few koans, very few,
Mhm.
in over many years, right? And finally, what happened was that I just got tired of it, and it led me to another Zen teacher.
Mhm.
And this particular Zen teacher, he said, oh, you only need one. You only need one koan. You don't have to worry about the teacher that I ended up with, you know. He said, you only need one koan. You don't have to answer 2,500 koans.
And the name of the teacher, which you already mentioned to me about the fundamental koan, it's the same?
No. That's just somebody who was a, I've never met him. He died before I got to Japan. I just read it. He has books written about it, you know, but they're all in there. Unfortunately, they're not really accessible because they're all in Japanese. But anyway, it's the idea that he has, I think, is really applicable to koans, right?
So it's
And
the same idea with the one koan, just one koan.
yeah. It's the same idea. It's the same idea, basically. But he said that, you know, I ended up with a teacher, and he said, you don't need to go through all these 2,500 koans or whatever, 2,200. Some people have 2,200, some have 1,800. You know, there are a lot of, like I said, there's different systems and so on. You only need one. You just have to find out what it is. You find your own koan, and when you find your own koan, it's the same kind of situation. You know, you're up against yourself, and that's what that's, you know, you have to learn how to stay with a koan. You have to learn how to work with a koan, so you're not thinking about it. You know, you're not like using your rational mind. You have to learn how to stay with it, and your consciousness being able to focus on it, but without thinking about it. And that's what you know, it's, in other words, there's a training that's involved in doing this, you know, learning how to work with koans. And basically, by being able to, the difference was for me, when it was, you know, with the teacher that I was ended up studying with, he said that your koan is you. If you think of your koan as being something outside yourself, something that you're doing to yourself, then you're never going to answer the koan. It's not something that you can like try to, you know, you as a person try to transform yourself. It doesn't work that way. You know, it's only, all you can do is you have to, it's not like doing some kind of external thing to yourself, right? It's not like doing something. It's like a lot of people approach meditation or these kinds of things as something to try and change themselves, and they're trying to change themselves, but the who that is trying to change themselves never gets looked at. And that who that is trying to change, that I who's trying to change themselves, that I never gets that's really what has to be transformed. The I, you know, and that's your most, how do I say, that's your most personal part. Right? That's you. And so he would say, don't look outside yourself. You have to learn how to stay inside yourself.
But where is the borders?
Pardon?
Where is the borders? Boundaries?
Where's the boundaries? Oh, in the end, there are no boundaries. It's in the end, there's no boundaries at all. Boundaries just disappear.
Mhm.
But in the process of it's like there's no difference between you or anything else fundamentally. But in the process of it's like it's like having to learn how to be. It's like just learn how to just be, not outside yourself, but just be you as you are with awareness, essentially.
Mhm. So you did you find this your own koan?
Yeah, I can say that.
And did you found a solution of this?
No, I haven't found a solution to it yet. I'm not enlightened, so I can't really say that I've fully been able to answer it. But the how do I say, the process of I mean, it took me a long time to understand how to just be, and how to just be with awareness without doing anything, without trying to do anything to me, just trying to be in my how do I say, pre-existing self, not the self that I've created for for daily life and to function in the world and so on, but just my pre-existing self, the one that was always there, always already there.
Right, but what do you intend to finally solve the koan, or you will just stay with it all your life?
Oh, of course I have the intention to. Of course I have the intention to finally solve it. Of course. But this is a how do I say? It's like a it's like this one guy that I was referring to earlier. He said, you have to try. Your intention is an important part of the process, but fundamentally, the result doesn't come from your intention.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try. You have to it's kind of a both. You have to try and not try at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds kind of crazy, but that's kind of the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, what's if we will think about complexity, like the first koans you tried to solve, what's you think, they were more simple than the koan which you are trying to solve right now?
Oh yeah, they were a lot more simple.
Okay, can you make an example? What was a koan? How did you work with them?
I had one koan which was the Zen teacher would hold up a stick,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he would say, how do you become one with the stick?
Mm-hmm.
That was it. How do you become one with the stick?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And at first I tried to, you try to say these things like, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. He would just yell at me, you haven't understood anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And or various responses or something, various kind of negative responses or something like that. And then finally, I realized that explanations or words or whatever weren't what he was looking for, right? He just wanted me to demonstrate
Mm-hmm.
being one with the stick.
Mm-hmm.
So one time I walked in to see him, and he picked up his stick and he held it up like this. So I just stood up. I was sitting.
Да, да, конечно.
And then he started laughing. He said, "Oh, you finally understand." Right.
So it's the most simple koan in this school.
Yeah.
And how long did it take for you to finally get that?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly, but it was several years. I don't remember exactly.
And what was that? It was Rinzai or?
Yeah, he was a Rinzai teacher. He was a Rinzai teacher from Miyoshin, from a temple called Miyoshinji in Kyoto. So, like I say, there's a lot of different schools of koan. He was from the Miyoshinji school system. So.
Will you write for me the spelling, because I will translate it.
Oh, Miyoshinji? Yeah, sure. Hold on a second.
See. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, so there are three characters in Japanese. Myo means kind of unfathomable or mysterious, or not, you can't understand it, whatever, beyond understanding, myo. Shin means basically the heart mind, and Ji means temple. So it's you could try and translate the name of the temple as kind of the unfathomable heart mind temple.
Interesting. And you, which language did you speak with him? You already?
Oh, in English. In English.
So he asked the question in English, how to become one with.
Yeah, no, I've done, my Japanese is not quite I mean, I've done some, I've had some interviews and so on in Japanese, but most of them have been in English. So, but he no, he the first time I went in to see him, he looked at me and he go, "Oh, you American?" I go, "Yeah, I'm American." He says, "Okay, I give you American koan."
And it was American koan?
Yeah. So, he how do I say, he adjusted everything for the, I mean, it's basically the same thing, but he adjusted the exact words and and whatever the thing for the different cultural considerations or whatever. My very first koan that he gave me was when he said, "You American?" I said, "Yes." And so he stuck out my hand. He stuck out his hand and he says, "Let's shake hands." Right? You don't shake hands in Japan. It's not part of the culture, right? You never touch. You never, in Japan, in public life, you always shake. You always meet when you bow to each other. You don't shake hands, right? So he said, "Let's shake hands." So we shook hands, and he said, "Okay. Now, when you're shaking hands with me, how do you realize God?" That was the first koan. So this is obviously, how do you realize God? God, yeah.
Bog.
God in English.
God, yeah, okay.
So, but I never passed that koan. I never could answer that koan. And so I told him it was too difficult at one point, and he yelled at me. And So then after, I don't know, how many years went by, 2 years went by or something like that. And finally he looks at me and he goes, "It's too difficult," which is exactly what I'd said to him 2 years before. But he said, "It's too difficult." He says, "I give you new koans." So that's when he gave me the stick koan.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And did you chosen him between other teachers, or you just found him because he was Afro-American? So
Oh, you mean how did I meet him in the
yeah, how
beginning?
did you meet him?
Oh, do you know who Ramdas is?
Yes, I know.
Baba Ramdas?
Um,
You know, he died a couple years ago or something.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
know.
remember, something like that. You know, I can't remember exactly when it was that he died. But anyway, I had met Ramdas, and I went to him and I had a talk with him, and I told him I've been doing yoga, going to India and so on.
mhm,
This was like back in 1970, and then the early 1970s, whatever. And so I've been having but the kind of yoga that I was doing, I hadn't met Ramdas before, but I was studying with a particular yoga teacher because it was similar to the kind of yoga that he had studied with, right, when he'd gone to India. But it hadn't worked out for me. I wasn't happy with it.
mhm. It
And
was in
so
India or in America? Where?
in India,
Mhm.
yeah. But also in America too. This group had a branch in America too.
Mhm.
So I went over to study at their ashram in India and so on in 1972. But I did it for a few years, but I wasn't really happy with it. So in 1974, through a combination of circumstances, I ended up meeting Ramdas, and I told him what was going on with my yoga practice, my meditation practice, and so on. And he said to me, basically the summary was, after listening and asking a few questions and so on, he said to me, "Well, I think that your heart is okay, but your mind is really messed up.
Mhm.
You're really confused."
Mhm.
And he said, "I think what you need is some mental discipline."
Mhm.
And he said, "The strictest person I know is this Zen teacher from Myoshinji.
Mhm.
And he's going to be giving a meditation retreat. He came to the U.S. You know, he's going to be giving a meditation retreat at this place in New York. It was like in a month or two afterwards, you know."
Mhm.
And he gave me the information. He actually had a flyer, and he gave me the flyer. He said, "I think you should go."
Mhm.
So I did. That's how I met this guy from
Mhm.
from Myoshinji.
Mhm. And finally, did you agree that it's help you to clear your mind? This teacher
Oh
helped.
yeah, absolutely. But there was a whole. I mean, I'm still doing it, you know. So, I mean, obviously, I've got a strong attachment to it. But the other side of it is that there have been so many difficulties and so many misunderstandings and so on. It took me years to understand things. And, you know, one of the things that happened with doing koans, with studying with this guy with Myoshinji, I would end up, I didn't know what to do a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And I didn't know, I mean, I was just kind of, because I kept failing koans and it was, so I was really confused basically. And then, so because of this kind of confusion, then I passed a couple koans, but I was still confused and I still didn't understand what was going on. And because of this kind of confusion that I had, I ended up going to, I did a Vipassana meditation retreat at a temple in Thailand for 10 days. And then I ended up going to this teacher that I met before, I mentioned before in Japan. And basically what happened was that I learned about breathing practice, essentially, right?
Mhm.
And I had never learned this from this guy from Myoshinji. He'd only taught me koans.
Mhm.
And I wasn't getting anywhere. I was just spinning my wheels and stuff. So I went back to him
Mhm.
after getting some instruction in the breathing practices, kind of like a foundation of meditation, sitting practice. And I went back to the guy from from Myoshinji, and it was basically, I was having the same kind of experience. I didn't know how to answer what he was saying, what he was asking me to do. But then after about 3 or 4 days or something, I went to see him, and he said to me, without my saying anything about it, he said, "Oh," he said, "your meditation is much better than before."
Mhm.
I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes, your mind is clearer." Right? But I was angry actually, because he had never given me these instructions in how to do basic meditation practice. He'd just given me this koan stuff, and I just ran around in circles for a long time, not knowing what to do. And then I got this instruction from somebody else and came back to him, and in breathing practice, and all of a sudden he liked it, and I started passing some koans, and it was just, it was like, this isn't working for me. I'm not why didn't he give me this instruction right at the beginning, like the other teachers did? And so I left, and that's why I ended up going to the other teacher who had this base of breathing practice, but then he introduced koan, but in a different kind of way, using it in a different kind of way. Use koans as just, as I was talking about before, it's just the one koan. So that's kind of what happened.
And by breathing, you mean like zazen, observing the breathing? So it's not like.
Well, they don't use those. In Zen, they don't use that terminology. They don't call it observing. They don't call it observing the breathing. They call it focusing on the breathing and becoming one with the breath. Right. So you're not trying to set up an observer. You're trying to, the purpose is just to be one with, you're trying to drop the observer actually, and trying to be one with the breath. So it's a little different than mindfulness meditation.
But to focus, at least to focus, you need the observer, someone who will focus.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. But the dropping of the observer, that's the beginning of the practice, is observing it and so on. But how do I say, the goal or whatever is to drop the observer. So there's no separation between you and the breath.
I understand the idea, because in a holotropic or rebirthing breathwork, there is a stage which called breath release, where kind of breathing began to breathe by itself. And it's happened, not very often, but it's happened, like dropping. But usually it's called the process. So it's not I drop observer, because in order to drop, I need someone who will drop.
That's right.
It's just happening.
Yeah, that's right. Essentially just being the breath, just with awareness. That's basically what it is.
But still, usually awareness, it's someone who are aware of.
Well, see, this is an interesting idea, because I mean, there's this part of Western psychology which says that the fundamental thing in consciousness is a subject that's aware of an object, right?
Yeah.
But this idea is different, that you can have consciousness without just consciousness, just as it is, without the observer, you know, without the subjective object, the subject object distinction.
I understand an idea. It's probably the enlightenment as it is.
Yeah, right. I agree. I agree. It's exactly what it is.
Mhm. And can you write me the name of the teacher you found?
Okay. Yeah, he died a few years ago. So in Japan, the Harada is a very common family name.
Mhm.
And so if you're going to look for him, because there are other Harada Zen teachers, you have to make sure that you are looking for this particular Harada.
Mhm. And it's also a particular tradition, like it's still Rinzai, or it's something different?
No, it's Soto.
Soto.
Yeah, Soto.
So Soto almost don't use koans, right? Soto.
Well, see, there are branches of, I mean, in probably most of Soto, they don't use koans,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not all of Soto.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read, are you familiar with Dogen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Dogen is the founder of the Soto sect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if you read, he has this thing called the Genjo koan,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if you're familiar with it. Genjo koan is Genjo is, it's translated in a lot of different ways, but the Genjo means kind of daily life, you know.
I've been in a monastery in Shasta.
Oh yeah, right.
Probably also been there, you know.
Right. I've heard of it. I've never been there. Yeah.
So I also did an interview with one of the monastery monk, and she told me this, kind of this story about them.
Right. So this is kind of the basis of the kind of use of koans and the way that Harada uses koans. It's based on the Genjo koan, you know, koan of daily life. You know?
Mm-hmm. But as I understand, they don't have a criteria that you get enlightenment finally.
There's a lot of this. See, again, this is the kind of you know, there's a lot of disagreement about that within Zen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but my teacher said that enlightenment is definitely something that happens, and it happens once and it's final.
No, like you found the answer with a stick. Is it enlightenment?
No, it's not enlightenment.
Why not?
Because there's still an ego self left over. But there's an, you know, I mean, that's the supposedly the process of using koans, you know, with these 20,000, with these 2,000 koans or whatever, however, depending on the school, what the number is, it's like it's leading you towards, you know, enlightenment. You know, it's like a process. You know, you get it's sort of like a process that you go through that supposedly by the time you finish the process, you cannot finish the process without becoming enlightened. That's the belief, you know. But Harada himself is very, he called it ladder Zen, you know, step by step, you know, going up the ladder. And he thinks that it's really, he thinks he's very critical of it, you know. So there's a lot of, you know, within Zen.
Why he's critical if he called it ladder?
He called it ladder because of that he thinks that people just they miss the important point, which is themselves. the person who's climbing the ladder. They
But
get focused.
does not they come closer to themselves going through?
Well, I mean, this is a matter of, I mean, I can read you some stuff that he wrote about it, you know, I mean,
Interesting.
if you get a hold of, one of it, he has a book called The Essence of Zen. And if you get a hold of it, you can, there's some parts in there where he writes about what he calls ladder Zen and why it doesn't work, you know, why he's critical of it and so on. You know?
It's in English.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you agree that it doesn't work?
Well, what can I say? You know, it's not like I'm an authority on this kind of thing. You know, it's not like I don't, you know, it's like, but in my own experience, it didn't work.
No, you did this koan. Why it doesn't work? You did it.
But I didn't, it didn't work for me in terms of I just ended up being confused.
But
So
you made one step at least, and you
I
made.
made a couple, I made a couple steps, but like I say, it didn't have it wasn't until I started with basic mindfulness practice, basically, essentially, and then got into Zen with Harada that things started changing. And I felt, you know, some real transformation going on. Other than that, it was like, yeah, I answered a koan, but so what? You know?
But
and
you will.
until you can connect, until you can connect it to yourself, if it's just something you're doing to yourself, it doesn't mean anything. But if you connect it to yourself, to your being, who you are, in a deep way, then it starts to mean something to you. You know? There are people, you know, if you want to talk to somebody who's more pro koan, you know, there's a guy whose name is Jeff Shore, an American guy who lives in Japan. I'll show you his, hold on a second. Let me go get his book, okay? This guy here.
Jeff Shore.
Jeff Shore, he's been through the traditional koan study, you know, with 22, I think it was 2,200 koans in the school that he studied with, and 55.
I met John Tarrant. Do you know John Tarrant? John Tarrant in.
I've heard the name. I don't know much about it now.
He also done a lot of koan. He's founder of Pacific Zen Institute in Santa.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Jeff would not be willing to be interviewed because he doesn't do this kind of stuff anymore. But anyway, he's somebody who's been through this, you know, through the koan school and everything. Has now got his own, is a certified teacher and so on, you know. But this is the, you know, from the teacher that I study with. This is the book, you know, the Essence of Zen. And let me see if I can. Well, I'd have to look for it, exactly where it is in here, because there's not a, there's not a, they don't have an index, so you can't just, it's not so easy to find things, but,
But you can just tell me what's an idea.
yeah, no. I can't find the exact place where he talks about, but it's in here anyway, so.
Mhm. And what's you're doing now? You have another master, because you said that this one died several years.
Well, I mean, I still consider him my teacher, and I've been to, I mean, in Japan, there are a lot of Zen teachers, and but part of the limitation is because of the virus. A lot of places are closed now.
Mhm.
Most places,
Mhm.
most temples and monasteries are closed. They're not open to outsiders.
Mhm.
And the temple that Harada was at is now, they've got a new teacher there, but they've closed it completely to outsiders.
Mhm.
So I can't go. And there are a few in Kyoto. There's a few places that I've been to, but also have been closed.
Mhm.
And there's one place that is open, and I did a couple sessions, meditation retreats there, but I don't know. It wasn't the same.
Mhm.
And so I'm basically still doing the same practice that I've been doing.
Mhm.
And Harada said once, he said, if you can't find a teacher for yourself, then go sit in front of a tree, and the tree will be your teacher. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm doing. For the time being, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the future.
And do you still work with the question which you found,
Oh, sure.
or you
Sure.
change the question? What's actually happening?
Oh, no. It's basically the same.
The same question.
Yeah.
And
It's very simple. It's just, who am I? That's all it is. It's
oh
very
my.
simple. Just, yeah, who am I? Yeah. But it's the focusing on the I part, is what you have to learn how to do. Is you have to learn how to focus on the I when you're sitting. That's the hard part.
But isn't it the last? Like if we'll see still, it's as a ladder. The koan, who am I, will be the last one.
That's right. That's right. In a ladder ladder sense, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the previous koans is just a preparation, or like a help with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Right.
So
That's right.
you just make a big jump.
Well, it depends on how you want to. You have to. I don't know. The big jump. You go. Another way of describing it, you go directly to the source question.
That's
And you just go directly to the source question. But you have to learn how to be able to attend to it. You have to learn how to be able to. Most people get lost when they say they can't sense I. They can't feel it. They don't know what to focus on. They don't know how to sit. You have to learn how to do that. So that's that was having a teacher for that is really helpful. To learn how to do that. A teacher is very, very helpful.
And your first teacher from Shinzi Temple, is he still alive?
Oh, everybody has gotten, I'm not young, I first sat with him like about 50 years ago, and he died, I don't know when it was, 8-9 years ago, something like that, 10 years ago, something like that. So all of my teachers are kind of in the previous generation. Just about all of them have passed now. So,
So it's time for you to become a teacher. No,
I
it's
do. I do what I do. You know. And we'll see how it goes. You know. I have a. If you're interested, but this is not specifically about koans. But I gave a talk. I call it personal Zen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am interested. So
If you're interested, I can send it to you. I gave a talk to a Buddhist group in Bangkok. When was it? In September.
Yeah,
On Zoom, right? And so
yeah.
this is a written version. It's not exactly the talk, but it's basically a written version of what I talked about. You know.
So you will send me text.
I will send you the text. Yeah, I'll send you the. Let me see. No, I can't do it on this computer. I have to do it on another computer. But I've got the material on another computer. But I can send it to you after we get done talking.
And there is no video
Of the talk. Oh no, I didn't make a video. I didn't make a video. You know, so maybe I might have recorded it. I might have recorded it. Let me see if I've got the recording. Hold on a second. I don't know if I've got the recording or not. It might be on my phone. I might have recorded it. September 8th. Oh, here it is. Oh yeah. This is. I have a recording of it if you really want it. You know?
Yeah, I want the recording and text.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll try and send that to you also. So.
Okay. And if you have any other articles like about that, also will be interesting.
Oh, I've got. Well, I have to see what I see what's appropriate. I mean, I've written a bunch of different stuff, but it's there was I have to see if there's anything that's relevant to what we've been talking about. You know, basically I wrote an article that was published this year actually, about the basics of practice, Zen practice, from a cultural point of view, from a Japanese cultural point of view. And I don't know if you're interested in it or not, but you know, I could send it to you if you want to. You know, so. And, I'll look and see. I'll look and see if there's anything else. If you're interested in, I'll look and see if there's anything else.
Хорошо, I will. And will you write me the name of your first teacher? So Shinji Temple.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Joshu Sasaki.
Okay. Ясно. Хорошо. And
he was quite a guy.
Okay, I will show you the light finally.
Oh,
see?
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
It's
oh, I see some snow outside there
snow,
too. Eh?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, a lot of snow actually.
Yeah, a lot of snow, yes.
Cold, eh?
Да.
Well, who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll come to Russia. I never know what's going to happen, you know. So got to wait for the virus to pass first, but you know, we'll see. We'll see how these things work out. You know.
Yes, you're very welcome. We can build a new ladder.
We can do what?
New ladder.
Oh, okay.
So I will look forward for your
Okay,
talks, and I will put some subtitles on our recording, and then
Okay.
I will send it to you. And
Oh,
maybe
okay.
if I will have some more questions, I will ask you again.
Okay.
Ладно?
Okay. Okay. Good.
Хорошо. До свидания.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good. Nice talking to you.